On this episode, we'll discuss how church leaders can avoid burnout in a busy ministry season. Well, hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast, the show that is dedicated to inspiring leaders and empowering healthy churches. I'm your host, Kendall Connor, and I'm so excited to jump into today's episode. We have a great conversation planned with an incredible guest. Today on the show, we are joined by author James. And if you have not connected with him before, let me tell you a little bit about him. He is a seasoned educator and leader and a longtime bivocational pastor. Author, he has spent years in the hospitality industry before he moved into the classroom as a professor and eventually served as the executive dean at both North Lake College and Tarrant County College. He has led in both an established church and he also is a church planner. He planted the Transparent Church in Grand Prairie, and that's where he still pastors today. He is also the author of Preaching Through Pain, and I love the subtitle of this book, What Every Preacher in Person Should Know About Performing Under Pressure. Author, he just brings a wealth of wisdom for leaders who are serving under pressure, who are working through busy seasons. And today we are so honored to have him on the show. We're going to be talking all about how church leaders can avoid burnout in a busy ministry season. Before we jump in, I'd like to encourage all of our listeners today, hit that follow button. We want to see that you're subscribed wherever you're enjoying our show because we want to make sure that you stay in the loop as we continue to release these conversations and provide valuable resources. Really, that's the best way to make sure that you do not miss a thing. So, hey, without further ado, let's welcome author James to the show. How are you today, Arthur?
I'm doing well. It's a great day to be alive. How about yourself, Kendall?
I love that. It is a great day to be alive. I love your optimism in that. Thank you for taking time to talk with us today.
It is my pleasure to be a part of this wonderful podcast.
I love that. Now, something that we always ask every guest that comes on the show, we read the public bio, but I always like to ask, what's something that maybe doesn't make the public bio, but all your friends and family would know about you?
That's an interesting question. I'm pretty much, I like to think of myself as an open book, but, and as a pastor, I share a lot of personal illustrations,
Sure.
particularly at golf. But what people may not know is that I do have a fun side. I love to laugh. I love to watch action movies. And even though I'm a pastor, I love to watch the murder mysteries to figure out who did it and solve the crime. And if you
Yeah.
really know me well, I'll joke a lot using movie lines from either a comedy or an action or a suspense movie that I watched.
I love that. I'm a big movie guy as well, and it's funny. You would get along with some of my family members. They're all about the whodunit, figuring out the murder mystery. So I definitely understand that world, but I don't know. I'm too much of a wimp when it comes to that. I don't. I can't. They're not for me. I'll say that.
Okay, well, there's tons of different ones out there.
I love that. But overall, I do love the movies for sure. I love that. Well, I know that you have spent years coming alongside pastors. You've spent so much time in ministry yourself, but you also have these different backgrounds that kind of make up your unique skill set and personality. How did you first get passionate about helping other leaders, and even where did that passion for ministry come from?
So I like to think when it comes to the passion for ministry, I have had a call since a young age, and had my pastor used to tell me that I was going to pastor the church once he retired. When I grew up, the
Mm,
pastor that baptized me, Pastor Creighton, back in Dallas, and my mother used to tell me that the Lord told her I was going to be called to the ministry. Well, I said that's all fine and dandy, but the Lord would have to tell me, and sure enough, He did one day. So my
wow.
passion originally came out of what my proficiency was. So I thought I was going to be the next Drew Pearson in Dallas and play professional football. Stopped at the college level, was passionate about speaking and even preaching once I got into it. But really my passion, the older I've gotten, my passion has shifted more so to come alongside and help leaders, young as well as seasoned leaders, young at heart, to deal with life and pain. And as a matter of fact, the more I pursued ministry and preaching, the more pain showed
Yes.
up in my life. And so my
Wow.
passion shifted from being passionate about my proficiency to using that proficiency to lead others and to help them as I help myself through the area of pain. And so whether it's the pain of being a pastor that has gone through divorce, which I have a understanding of. Wish I didn't, but I do. And so, wishing that you had someone to walk alongside of you to share some
Sure.
illustrations and some information and some insight with you as you go through these various challenges. I had mentors, but it's something different when I'll just tell you, God has had His hand on my life from an early age, and what I
Mm,
found a lot growing up rather in ministry and in life, many times I would go to mentors and before the sessions were over, they would begin asking me for questions and insight, just based on my background and what God has brought me through and
sure.
to. And so that fueled passion for me to come alongside that. I wish I had folks who understood a little bit more. And I wanted to always be that person who understood being in the trenches of ministry and the
Yes.
marketplace and how to walk through that. And so through the years, God has been faithful, and I just had a passion to walk people through this thing called life, regardless of what season they're in.
And that really resonates with me because there's so much life that happens around. A lot of times we think, pastors, their ministry is, is just on a Sunday morning. A lot of times they'll see just a minister on people in our congregations, they'll see a pastor up on a stage on a Sunday morning and they just think that, okay, well, that's him. That's all that they're facing. But we know, those of us who are listening today who are serving in ministry is something that happens 7 days a week. And then there's also all of the life that comes along with it, right? Like you're, raising families and have, your spouse, you have these different areas in your personal life too that you're trying to bring your best to, that you're trying to honor God in. And so there's so many different elements that go into, it's not just a Sunday morning experience, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's the other things that come alongside of it. So the
Sure.
preaching, which is a huge portion of it, but then there's an administration aspect, particularly if you're a pastor. Difference in, of
Mm,
course, being a preacher and being a preacher pastor, or a
sure.
church planner, which is a whole nother set of challenges that come along with
Yes.
that. Particularly if you're starting out. I started back in the 1900s. Actually, I think I started before ARC and all these associations and aids to help. Where we just
Sure.
went out and started and believed God. Not saying that you don't appreciate those resources because you do. But just understanding that there's, as you mentioned, with the relationships in your own personal life, just finding that balance of how to remain full of fire and faith while your
Mm,
life is on fire. And God has walked me through some
wow.
things, and I just have a heart to help others do the same thing, whether you're talking about the pain, as I mentioned, of going through divorce or the pain of being a single
Yes.
parent pastor, the pain of going through the season where you have to watch your parents age and caring for
Yes.
them with like dementia or
Mm,
Alzheimer's, which I had both of those situations with my parents. And so preaching through
wow.
that, leading through that can be quite challenging. And so my passion continues to have ignition, not ignition, but it continues to be fueled, I should say, when I think about people who go through some of the things I've gone through and still have the call on their life. I used to think it like this, Kendall, and I write about this in the book as well. I used to think it was my perfection that qualified me to pastor and preach,
Mm,
but I found out the hard way it is not my perfection. It's my ability to preach through and to deal with pain. As God builds me, God oftentimes breaks
wow.
us before He makes us so that
Yes.
we can help someone else to make it. And so that's what helps me continue to do this thing for almost 30 years now, called Preach and Pastor, and really just have fun in the joy of the Lord doing what He's called me to do.
I love that. And man, there's so many takeaways in this already. I know that it's going to be encouraging for all these listeners out there. I'm just curious. I know that you have served as a bivocational leader, and you've planted churches. You planted your church, and I love that you said that you did it when you said the 1900s. That really just messed with me a little bit. I'm thinking, I'm thinking it is technically, yeah. But you make it seem like it was so long ago. That just made me chuckle a little bit with that. But having all these different experiences, how would you say? I know when it comes to busy seasons and times when these leaders, maybe they're full time in ministry or on staff, or maybe they are in a bivocational, situation with as they serve. How does being busy and staying on fire for God? How do all of these things work together?
A great question. Again, so when it comes to being busy, and I've been busy, but I have learned to focus not so much on the busyness, but on being
Hmm.
effective. And in order to
Mm.
be effective, even when you're busy as a pastor, and I'm still bivocational, uh, and so having those two hats and having one foot in the church or ministry and one foot in the marketplace can become challenging. Church in itself, no matter the size of the church, is a
Yes.
large full time job in itself. But
Yes.
when it comes to the busyness, we hear the term a lot, the balance. But I think even more so than the balance is the focus on
Mm.
keeping the main thing the main thing. So typically, how I've allowed myself, and God has allowed me, I should say, even better, to remain on fire is to stay in His face.
Mm.
That's why, rather, no matter what I do, no matter how busy the day is, I'm going to start my day in the Word, in my own personal devotion, not just teaching
Mm.
the people about it. I never, even when I was younger, I never studied the scriptures to get a message. I
Mm.
studied the scriptures to get God. I can now even see vividly in my mind. I grew up in the Dallas area in Oak Cliff, and number 9 out of 10 children. And when all the other siblings were asleep and my parents were asleep, I'd get up in the morning at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, midnight, and sit
Wow.
on the washing machine. I don't know why that was my place before I had an office. And I would just read the scriptures. I'd highlight my KJV and started doing my own concordances. And so the word got in me as
Wow.
I got in the word. And so
Yes.
I would just say that helps with the balance. And what I attempt to do, even still today, is to give out of the overflow what I have on the
Mm.
inside. And that's help with that. But in addition to that, it's also the factor of what God had to teach me through the process, what I call the dependency factor. He begins to share to us that in Isaiah, we know it all, chapter 40, verse 31, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. I love, though, the way that the New Living Translation shares that verse. It says, those who trust in the Lord shall
Mm.
gain new strength. The thing that blessed me once I first read it from the new NLT version, New Living Translation rather, is the fact that God provides new strength. And when He provides new strength, He also provides new
Wow.
strategies. When we trust Him, though, when we trust Him with new strength and new strategies, He sends us new support as well. And so, when we
Wow.
oftentimes think it's our church, we stop trusting God. God gives us to the church or to the people to do the work of ministry.
Yes.
And so sometimes when we get that out of balance and we lose the focus and we stop focusing on our personal fire, it's hard to fire someone else up when you're on E as well.
Well, and I'd love to hear from you for that pastor or for that ministry leader that's listening to this today that does feel like they're running on E. They're feeling like they are just burnt out in this season. What would you say to them today?
I would say pause. I
Mm.
would say don't burn out. Pause, pray. And here's something that I think we oftentimes fail to do in the church, whether that's the pastor or whether that's the people that are sitting in the pew. It's the main thing, and oftentimes we look for these great aha moments and these
Yes.
massive miracles when instead, oftentimes it's the things we know to do that we just don't do. So for one,
Wow.
when I've had those times and seasons where it just felt like overwhelm, I just had to pause and pray, Lord, give me my fire back. Lord, give me a passion
Right.
for your word. Before I
Right.
open the word, God, prepare
Mm.
my heart for the word I'm about to hear so that I'm not going through the motions. I'll be honest and tell you, there are times, and I tell our church this all the time, I have to go to quiet time study hall when I just go through and check it off because I'm an achiever. And God will remind me, no, I need you to go back and really get it. You're just trying to get this done. Don't get it done. Spend time with me because how you start
Mm.
your day is going to impact how the rest of your day goes and the rest of all the things that are going to come that you don't know about, but that I know about
Sure.
that you need to be built up. And what you need here today is what is going to give it to you. So I would say, from that perspective, understand that we also get the privilege to serve, to teach,
Mm.
preach, lead, and sometimes with the business, it can become overwhelming and it messes with our mindset. And we start saying things like, I gotta go to church.
Mm.
I
Right.
gotta go
Yeah.
preach. I gotta go to this community event. I
Yes.
gotta pick up these children. Well, no, in reality, we get to. And so just
Yes.
having that mindset that even starting out today, it's a great day to be alive. Now, that doesn't mean, and
Yes.
sometimes I have to say, honestly, when folks ask me how I'm doing, I'll say sometimes I'm great by faith. I may not
Mm,
feel great all the time, but I'm
I like
believing
that.
that somewhere in the day, God's going to make a way and I'm going to feel great by faith. And so sometimes we have to speak it before we feel it, knowing that because God is with us, He's going to make sure that things work out for our good.
That is a great word for today, and I can tell you, I can sense your heart as a pastor in those words because that is I know that that's going to encourage someone today. I know that we are coming up on a busy season. We're in a busy season. We've got, things like Christmas coming up, end of year, the new year beginning soon. And I know that everything in this season can kind of feel urgent.
Yep.
We're feeling that out in the world. We're feeling it in our workplaces. We can feel that with all of the things that are happening with extra services and things like that, special elements in our church services. As a ministry leader, it can feel like everything just depends on you. And I'm curious, how would you say that a ministry leader could adjust their focus in this season on the things that matter most?
Another great question. I would say when it comes to the things that matter most, remember who God has called you and where God has planted you. We've all
Mm,
heard the phrase before, bloom where you're planted. That's true. But in the blooming where we're planted, sometimes if we're not careful, we can start looking to the left and right and seeing what everyone else is doing as opposed to focus on what we've been called to do. And so the
wow.
scripture that has helped me through the years has been Galatians chapter 6, verse 4, that lets us understand that we should do the best of our ability, the work, I'm paraphrasing that God has placed in our hands, so that when we give it our all, doing it with our all, here's the
Yeah.
text, New Living Translation, then we won't, I'm putting in paraphrasing terms now, waste time comparing ourselves to others. I have found that
Mm,
through the years, what has happened to a lot of us in ministry is that we become driven versus led. We sometimes are driven by what the church down the street's doing or what we see the
yes.
mega church next to us doing, and we think we have to compete instead of realizing we've been called to the same team where we should be
Yes.
collaborating. And so what
Mm,
I've made it a purpose to do and shared with our leaders from day one is that if it doesn't line up with our mission and our vision and our values, it may be good, but it may not be a God thing for us to do, or at least in this season. And
yeah.
so we don't have to do what everyone else is doing. If the church next door is having a Christmas Eve candlelight visual service, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to do it, nor does that mean that that's bad for them to do. I personally pull back a little bit as we move closer into the holiday season in some aspects, because this is
Sure.
the other thing about that. When we understand whose church it is again, when we
Mhm.
understand that God has called us to equip as opposed to always having to be the one to engage, then that helps us to create focus. And from the focus, balance to where we can focus and balance on the things that we have the ability, the calling, and the gifting to do. And then we release others to do what God rather has called them to do so that we
Wow.
share the load. And so it's my heart to not just be engaged in everything myself, but according to Ephesians 4, 11, and 12, you know that we have been given as fivefold ministry, pastors, evangelists, prophets, pastors, and teachers to
Yes.
equip the saints to do the work of ministry. So it's my heart, my passion to equip the saints to do the work of ministry. That doesn't mean I still don't minister. I do. But I,
Sure.
I understand I'm limited. And it took me a while to understand. As a younger pastor, I did a lot more. I still do a lot, but I know I do less and less every year simply because I know my job is to lead and feed primarily. And as
Mm,
others find their gift and their passion, it helps them to be fulfilled in ministry themselves so they're not burning out. But it also helps you as the leader realize that that's where that trust comes in again. I trust
yes.
God to take care of the church. We planted the church
Mhm.
21 years ago, and every now and then God has to tap me on the shoulder and remind me, hey, remember whose church it is. And when I remember
Right.
whose church it is, I remember what my job is in helping the body to become equipped so that people who have gifts can flourish in those gifts. So that when I found as well, when we begin to find ourselves in a place where we have a proficiency and a passion, then you typically will have success and less burnout. And so that's one of the things I would just
That's
share.
really good. Yeah, that's really good, and I love that you pointed out that, passing the ministry on, sharing the ministry with some of these other people that God has entrusted you with, right? Kinda delegating some of those different elements of ministry, and also, equipping the saints, right? Like allowing God to use other people that He's put into our care as ministry leaders is so huge. Do you feel like in avoiding burnout, passing the baton to someone else and sharing that ministry with others, do you feel like that's a big part of that?
Well, that's essential to that.
Mm,
In order to alleviate and avoid burnout, we have to have build in. And I found out that people buy in when they're allowed to build in. And that's sharing vision,
wow.
but that's also allowing them to find their place. One of the things I'm excited about a few things if you hadn't noticed. But one of the things I'm excited about is even when we have our new members that come to the church in our new member orientation, one of the first things I do is provide for them a spiritual gift and passions profile so that
Mm,
they can find out what it is they're passionate
yes.
about but also what they're proficient about. So I'm a older, I won't say old, I'll say former hotel restaurant manager. And one of the things that we used to say in the hospitality industry is that we want to place people in a place where they have a position, where they have a passion and a proficiency rather, and not just a pulse. But I found
Yes.
even in ministry, sometimes we put people in positions just because we need a person. I don't want
Yes.
the person who doesn't really like kids to be in
Yes.
the children's ministry just because we have a vacancy. I would rather, and I know
Right.
some may disagree with me, but I'd rather forego having the wrong person in the wrong position and have a
Mm,
vacancy until we can find, someone who's suited in an area where they have a
sure.
passion and they have a proficiency, because when that happens, everyone wins.
I love that. And even talking about avoiding burnout, kind of bringing that joy, bringing that life, bringing that spark, that fire to a ministry leader. I can say from my own experience, seeing the joy and the way that God can use other people and seeing that light, that spark that comes in them when they are kind of figuring out that purpose, figuring out, man, I can use this gift for that I have for
Mhm.
God. And, seeing them use that to help other people come to Christ, I feel like that is seeing the joy that is sparked in that is one of the things that can just bring refreshing to your own leadership, can bring refreshing to your own life. And I feel like some of the most joyful times that I've had serving in ministry has been those times when I've helped other people to get involved.
Yeah, it's definitely refreshing because and also fulfilling when you see the light bulb go off. I'll give an
Yes.
example. I had one of our members that have been with our church for since the inception. When we prior to COVID, we were not streaming because I didn't feel like we had enough proficient experts for camera
Yeah.
crews and all those type of things. Well,
Sure.
we figured out some things and started doing them. But one of my members who've been with us for a long time, and we started also what we call, it wasn't my idea, but some of the team's idea, to have virtual ushers. So they're greeting the people and taking care of the text
Wow.
and things while I'm preaching and doing what I'm doing. And they just loved it. I never would have guessed in a million years that that would be the thing that caused her to become more
Wow.
committed and more focused
Yeah.
on ministry, but she loves it. So I don't, Pastor, I don't have to move anywhere else from doing what I'm doing now. And the people are getting blessed. And it's not, I guess what I'm saying is that it's not a burden, but it's a blessing, not
Yes.
only when the pastor gets to exercise his gift, but when he or she equips the body to be released and empowers them to utilize their gifts. Everybody
That
wins.
that is incredible. Everybody wins with that. That is so fulfilling. I know something that's unique to you is that you also, you have all of this experience that we mentioned, but you also have this passion for having an online presence, being able to minister to people online. Would you speak to that at all? Is that something that has been beneficial to you as you are reaching people in ministry?
It has. I will tell you, one of the ways our church has grown, particularly in this last year and a half in particular, it has been through our online presence. But with that being shared, I think one of the things I would say to church leaders who may not be on the online space or who would like to be, but feel like you don't have the time to be, I take it back to the word we talked about before, not just balance, but also understanding overflow. So I started
Mm,
out probably more than, I guess it was about 6, 7 years ago, once Facebook and, Twitter back in the day and all of them started going, I tiptoed
sure.
in out of the overflow. So as I mentioned earlier,
Mm,
every day I start my day with the word. I still use the Lifeway, not the Lifeway, but the YouVersion Bible app reading plan. I go through the Bible every year, my wife and I, and then we expanded to the church. Well, there's a verse of the day that's my verse. For instance, today, I started out 2 Timothy 1:7. God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind, King James Version. So the first thing I do is I share that verse and I just start putting a hashtag at just the word. So if you want to get mad, it's just the word. If you don't agree, it's not my word. It's just the word. I
Just
started
the
with
word.
that. And through the years, more particularly this past year and a half, added on to that, we start doing streaming and start taking the messages, clipping the messages and sharing, repurposing the Sunday morning message, sharing it that way. Because here's my thing. In 2025, I believe there's really not an excuse for any of us who are in the word to not take the word to the world. There's so much
Mm,
negativity out there. There's so much
sure,
evil and even sometimes demonic things that are out there that I want to have a
sure.
presence. Not
Mm,
perfect, but I want to do my part. So I challenged myself last year to start a daily devotion for our church members, and I started just doing a quick 2 to 3 minute video with my own word of the
yeah,
day from my own overflow. It is turned into a weekly theme now that I share so that each day, Monday through Friday, and when we do our 21-day fast birth of the year, I'm doing it for 21 days straight. A video. It's
yes.
more work on me, but we just celebrated a year and about 2 months of that, and God's been
Wow.
faithful. But from the overflow of that, I share it through our app first, but then I start sharing it on social media. My point by that
Wow.
is the reason I don't feel like I'm burnt out in that area is simply because I keep building from the overflow, repurposing, and also utilizing my team when I can and or others that helps me to do that, and it brings delight. Now, I'll say this as well: I'm more of a sniper because here's the other thing that you have to know from my perspective with the online presence is that you have to have boundaries, not just balance, but boundaries. And so
Mm,
once I'm in my quiet time, and from there, I start with sharing just the word, then I'll share our word of the day. And from there, I may share something else, but I'm jumping off, finishing my own time, but I don't get stuck in the scroll because it's easy to do.
oh, yeah,
So
sure.
sometimes I'll even set a timer to say, okay, you can catch up, but no more because I go through the day. So I'm having to get better. I still am active very much so every day. Where I have
Yeah,
to work is to work on the response, responding to the comments, that type of thing. So I start building time in the calendar later in the week to catch up. I don't try to do it every
wow.
day because I want to have a presence, but I know I can't get sucked into the pool of how social media can get you in.
I feel like that's great wisdom today too, as well, because we're talking about busy seasons and avoiding burnout, and it is having you're having to be intentional with your time. And I love that you've made time to make an impact while you say not getting caught up in the endless scroll, right? Because that can eat up so much of our time, and a lot of our effectiveness is impacted by that scroll more than we realize, right? But I love that you said you found this good balance between the two, being able to make an impact while not getting kind of caught up in, it using all of your time. That's really good wisdom.
Well, we work on it, and I just will share as well. It's just I think it's so needed today because
Mm,
people are looking for a sound word or just some direction,
mm,
and some may get it from other places. I just want to hold down my corner just to make sure that there is,
sure.
particularly for our church and then those that we're connected to or those who may see us on social media to hear straight from the word of God and not just my philosophy, because that's the thing that's going to, from my belief and my hope, is that it's going to, and my knowledge of it, because it's happened in my own life, is going to make the
Yeah,
transformation in people's lives.
that's so good. I know your unique perspective. You have this background in hospitality and that industry. I've heard you talk a little bit about ministry as a service in ministry. And I know that leaders, they often struggle to serve from a place of overflow rather than exhaustion. Can you speak to that at all?
Yes, I think I can speak to that. I love service. I learned early on that there was one or two things that I was going to do with my life: service or ministry, and ministry is service. And so, for many of us, that service piece should come when we understand. Again, it's a privilege and we're not
Mm,
entitled. Now, there's a small
mhm,
percentage where the struggle or the tension comes. I think there's a small percentage of pastors and church leaders who have that entitlement. It's my empire and not God's kingdom. There's a few. I
sure.
don't know to call any names, but my point being, the majority of us are in it for the right reason. We have a heart for God and a heart for His people. But
Yeah.
remembering that we've been called to serve, and I believe as the pastor or the lead pastor and the ministry leaders, we should be the lead servants. And so
Mm,
having that mindset means a world of difference. And that has to be, from my perspective, even as a church planner, that has to be infused throughout the culture of the church or the organization from a leadership perspective. And so
sure.
it's you could take the hotel industry, Schultz from the Four Seasons, not Four Seasons, Ritz Carlton, been there as well. But they used to have this phrase. I think they still have it. We're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. So regardless of
Mm,
what your position is, you
wow.
have the ability and the responsibility to serve. It should be the same way in the
Wow.
church, that we're all serving Christ first, who incidentally is the model of service.
Right.
He taught in the
Right.
word that the greatest among us would be the servants.
Wow.
Matter of fact, I'm actually teaching this week in my video date word of the day on service. I think today is serving with love. Serving
Wow.
yesterday was serving as well, willingly serving, and so just taking from the scriptures those tenets, those doctrines of principles that Jesus gave us that we ought to live
Yes.
out. As a matter of fact, people ask me all the time, "Why do you call yourselves the transparent church?" Because part of that's what God gave me, simply that we needed to be a place, not just a place, but a ministry where people could receive a clear view of Christ. And I said it like this: If I do
Wow.
my job really well, you should see some Christ in me. Hence transparent. And
Mm,
if I do my job really, really well, you should see some Christ in the people that I have the privilege to serve at the Transparent Church.
mm. I love your heart in that, and man, what a word for today. I know that as we get into busy seasons and just in general, serving in ministry, avoiding that burnout, do you have any practical rhythms or principles that these leaders can put into place? Maybe some things that would work regardless of their church size or budget or how big their staff is. I know they want to stay healthy. Is there any rhythms that you could suggest for that?
I think I have a few. Before I get into the rhythm, I'll make a statement first. And this is the statement I want to make to any leader watching today. The statement is you may be responsible for the budget of the church in your role. You may be responsible for teaching, preaching, whatever your aspect, ministry of worship and song. But all of us are responsible for our own spiritual connection with God.
Mhm.
Our work in ministry can't replace our relationship with God. And
Wow.
so as we understand that, that has to be the priority if we're ever going to get to
Yes.
overflow. Second, right behind that is what so many of us who are in ministry fail to realize, that we have a responsibility to also take care of our temples. The Bible teaches us that our bodies are the temple of the Holy Ghost. 1 Corinthians 6, chapter verse 19. And I say jokingly to some of our church members and people that I come in contact with, the leaders as well, is that if we really understood that our bodies are the temple of the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit, depending on which version you're reading from, then some of us are giving God a mansion while others of us are giving God a shack. I've been in both situations. And so while we focus on other things and other even sins, many times we forget the sin of gluttony. We forget the sin of
Mhm.
not taking care of our temples.
Wow.
And so
Yeah.
my challenge to leaders and to our church, they'll tell you I've probably gotten on their nerves because the light bulb has gone off in my life to where I have really focused on spending time in my word daily, and not just in my word, never forgetting the power of praise that goes with the word and prayer. Again, it's the mundane that oftentimes you find that leads to the miracle. But with
Mm.
that being said, right behind it is taking care of the temple. Here's why. Because if I am out of shape and if I'm not taking care of my
Wow.
body, if I'm sick and in the hospital, then I can't go make a hospital visit. I would much rather have
Wow.
myself healthy walking in to visit and pray for someone in the hospital as opposed to having to send someone else or to have someone come see me. I said all that to
Wow.
say God convicted me several years ago to take care of my temple. That's one of the keys, in addition to and right behind not forgetting the importance of being connected to God in your own personal life. With that, though, it impacts so much else. When I don't take care of my temple, I can't preach effectively. I can't
Mm.
serve. My attitude's down because sometimes we don't even know how oftentimes the foods that we eat impact our moods and impact the way we can
Sure.
serve and impact
Wow.
our strength. The lack of sleep and rest, even in busy seasons. And I'm just going to say this as well as a statement, and I hope it blesses someone. Yes, there are seasons, but if you're in ministry, hear me when I tell you,
Mm.
regardless of the size of your church, if you hadn't figured out by now, It's always busy. I don't know about
That's so
anyone
true.
else, but, uh, raise your hand, Kendall. You're my only audience right now. Uh, raise your hand, and for those watching, raise your hand if you're like me, Pastor James, and it seems like Sunday to Sunday just keeps getting shorter, that distance. Come on,
Yes. Huh?
man. And it's coming. And
So
so I
true.
know it's coming, but before I know it, it's come again. But with that
Yes.
being said, I've had to really adjust to take care of my temple as I keep my spiritual relationship with God intact first,
Yes.
because it's going to impact my relationship with everyone else. The vertical is going to impact the horizontal, but taking care of yourself. And here's another one right behind it. And this is going to be deep. Again, we look for the deep, but I'm a practical preacher. Metrics matter. So you got to measure what matters. What
Mm.
shifted it for me was that I had a transparent church member tell me once, and this was after I'd gone through divorce, and so some people, we go through life. Pain is a part of the process, and I
Yeah.
found out that people go through one end of the pendulum. I've been to both. Either when stress and business hits, we either eat too much or we eat too
Mm.
little. I was one of those. For most of the time, I ate too much. And so I had a member tell me once, she asked me a question. She was a little seasoned member in age, and she said, "Pastor, how big are you going to get?" And when she said
Wow.
that, I didn't take offense. It just, it made me come to the realization that there needed to be some change. Because honestly, if I
Mm.
were honest with myself at the time, I kind of avoided full length mirrors. I just kept buying bigger
Wow.
size clothes rather.
Mm.
And so when that shifted for me, I had to do something. And I went through the process of preaching through the pain of weight gain. I lost about 40 pounds. I don't done it before, but I've done with the
Mm.
yo-yo, and I have a lifestyle to where I'm enjoying this thing called life. But I have to measure
Mm.
my metrics.
Amazing.
Things like my blood pressure. Ran in my family. I finally ran it out of mine. Uh,
Wow.
Taking care of my drinking my spring water every day. I could go on about this, but you asked, so here's a
Sure.
rhythm. A rhythm is taking care of your temple by daily moving. You don't even have to
Mm.
have an expensive gym membership. I'll give you some of my secrets. It's just you and I talking, right? So I have a BMW, a bare minimum workout. So whether I make it to the gym, and I got that from Coach Rowe. She was a person who had a program called Sugar Ain't Sweet, and it helped me, and I've been sharing it with everybody else. So what I said by that is to say this: you don't have to have an expensive membership. Matter of fact, when I had memberships, I was a donor to the gym because I wasn't going to the gym. But even sometimes when I'm done with Bible study and everybody leaves the church or leaves online, I will walk or run laps inside the sanctuary just so I get my bare minimum workout in because it means that much
Wow.
to me. I measure everything.
Wow.
So get some sleep. If you're not getting, at least 5, maybe 6 hours, I was getting 3, 4, and we can wear it as a badge, and you're wearing yourself out as I was wearing myself out.
Wow.
But I started getting sleep, invested in a sleep number bed. I'm not telling you to do that. This is just some things that rhythm. And let me just say this as well.
Sure.
In full disclosure, I'm not one of those pastors that takes a 2 month sabbatical. I don't know what that's like. Uh, I rarely take vacation, but I have rhythms of rest. I play
Yeah.
golf at least once a week. I force myself to do so because it helps me
Yeah.
capture my delight. I spend time with my wife and our granddaughter at least once a week because we only have one grand. And if you're a grandparent watching this, listen, they're the best things since sliced bread. So spend time
Wow.
with them. So I said all that to say those are just some simple rhythms that help in the process. Taking care of your body, eating right,
Yes.
cut the sugar out of the diet. I know nobody wants to hear that, but I'm telling you, you would be surprised at how good you feel. I'm on fire. I feel
Wow.
great. I just got off of a 30-day raw plan where I just ate nuts and uncooked
Wow.
vegetables, no meat,
Yeah.
and fruits, and limited the fruits because some of my favorite fruits have the most sugar. I'm probably digressing, but I'm just trying to tell you. I told you I like movies, so I give you this is my saying I share that folks didn't know about me. So I use clips, and so one of my favorite movies is probably not the best Christian movie, but Tombstone. Have you seen Tombstone?
Remind me about what it's
It's
about.
the old
Maybe I think
Western.
maybe.
Kurt
Oh,
Kurt
yes, yeah,
Russell.
yeah, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Doc Holliday. Val Kilmer plays Doc Holliday. I feel
Yes.
like Doc Holliday when the bad guys were asking him, if he was in his retirement, like Wyatt Earp was in his retirement. Doc Holliday looked at him.
Yes.
He says, even though he was half sick, he says, "No, I'm in my prime." So that's how I feel, even as I preach, as I teach, as I talk. I feel like I'm in my prime, and a big portion of that has been me taking back control of my health and not being
Mm.
sluggish and not just going through a drive-through. I'm sorry, I'm
Wow.
digressing, but I want to help you because there are some ways to do it. You don't have to have a lot of money to
Sure.
do it. You just have to focus on being a person who makes it a priority to take care of your temple because that's how we worship God. We have this treasure in an earthen vessel, 2 Corinthians chapter 4,
Mm.
that the excellency might be of God. But if we're not taking care of this temple, we can't do the job with passion, with power, and with proficiency.
I feel like hearing your passion for having this healthy life is something that is it goes with our podcast so well because we talk a lot about healthy churches, we talk about healthy leaders, and a question that we always ask all of our guests when they come on the show is we'd love to hear from your opinion. What would you say is one essential component for a healthy church?
For a healthy church, I'm going to say it. I alluded to it a little bit earlier in a previous answer, but I would say an essential component of a healthy church is first of all a healthy leader, the
Mm,
DNA of the church, whether that's a
yes.
church plant or a church that's established, healthy leaders, and we know ultimately that Christ is the head of the church. But when it comes to those
Yes.
that He uses, the best thing
Mm,
I could do for my church, and I say my church, but we know it's God's church that I get to lead, is to be a healthy pastor focused on. It's what John says to Gaius in 3 John 2. I wish above all that you would prosper and be in good health, even
mm,
as your soul prospers. And so, as I focus on being healthy, not just physically but spiritually, and with that, working to maintain a healthy marriage. If I'm married, or if you're a single pastor watching this, having a healthy marriage or being a single person who's healthy in how you whether you date as a pastor, I've done that in my process through preaching through pain, or whether you're single and living like God calls us to live, that model makes the difference. Jesus
sure.
was a model. His disciples saw the model so that they could become the model. It's our job in 2025 to be the model that the world's looking for, not so that they
Mm,
worship us, but they see some Christ in us and want what we have, want the fact that we can have
wow.
peace in a life that's full of pain, want the fact that we can have uh, our minds with peace, even though there's so many problems and chaos in the world.
Sure.
So I would say a healthy leader with their own healthy relationships, including things like being physically sound and healthy in your finances, particularly if you're a ministry leader who has to oversee budgets or that type of thing. But health
Sure.
all around. Healthy things grow. And if you're not
Mm,
healthy, we begin to allow there to be unhealth that begins to infiltrate itself through the organizations. That could also include a church. So where there is health,
wow.
you begin to see health. We
That is
produce,
so good.
we reproduce who we are. We can sometimes
Yes.
teach the model, but sometimes better than hearing a message, people need to see a message.
That is so good. So much wisdom has been in this episode. I can tell you got that heart of a pastor, and I know that's going to bless a lot of these ministry leaders that are listening today. Kind of as we wrap up, we love to do a final five, kind of a rapid fire round. Are you up for
Okay.
the challenge to
I'm
go
up
through
for the
this rapid
challenge.
fire round?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that sounds great. Well, let's jump in. What's one book on this subject or similar that you'd recommend for church leaders? And I'll say other than your book, because we're going to put that in the show notes, right? Because that's going to be a great read for this subject.
For the subject of this whole issue of burnout and just for ministry, I will say this. One book that I've been recommending lately is a book called The AI Driven Leader. It's by a
Mm,
gentleman by the name of Jeff Woods. I don't know Jeff. I don't get anything from the book, but I've been recommending it to people because here's what I know. Whether you have a large team or a small team or no team, AI's here and it's not going away. The thing I love
sure.
about the book is the principles that he shares in the book. He teaches the fact that you and I should not allow AI to replace us as a thought leader, but to into AI with ourselves being the thought leader. And he has a model in the book called Krilt, where you begin to give the AI the context, the role that you have, and you have AI interview you, and then you give
Mm,
it the task. So I say that to say it's helped me because I use AI at our church. It helps me in various aspects of ministry. And particularly that helps me to avoid burnout because it can do in a quick second what sometimes it may take us a few days, weeks, and months to do. So that
sure.
would
I
be
believe
one.
that. No, that's a great recommendation. I'm gonna have to check that one out myself. All right, number 2 is what is the last thing that you listen to on Spotify or Apple Music, wherever you like to enjoy your music?
So I do listen to Spotify. I was listening to I listen to 2 podcasts just about every week and listen to one driving in today. One of which is, the Speaker Lab. I'm a proponent and student of Grant Baldwin, his podcast for speakers, but also listen to, other podcasts such as I was listening to coming in today, Watermark Church here in the Dallas area. They have a podcast for leaders, and they were talking about
Mm.
finishing strong today. And so, that was one of my thoughts as I continue to process my own personal time
All right.
of reflection.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to check that one out myself. That's a great recommendation. All right. What is your favorite piece of technology or software these days?
Well, I would have to say there's so many. My wife calls me
Sure.
a nerd. I'm not. I just love technology. But from a ministry perspective, as a pastor, particularly bivocational pastor, there's a resource also with artificial intelligence. It's called Pulpit AI. It's I don't know if you've heard of it, but it allows us to repurpose my messages. We put in the video. It doesn't write
That's
messages
awesome.
for you, but you can
Yeah.
upload the video of the message, and we turn it into a Bible reading
Yeah.
plan, quotes from my message. I even use it to score myself after I preach. I'll ask
Wow.
it on a scale of 100, how effective was this message? And most of the time, it tells me I'm pretty good, but preached too long, and my people will tell you that as well. So anyway, I'm working on it every week. I try to get
I
shorter.
don't I don't know that I need that level of honesty from AI, on my speaking at this point. No, that's awesome. I love that. I'm sure that's gonna be a valuable tool for him, but, yeah, that's man, and now you got me wanting to set that up for myself. How's my score gonna be?
So that's one. There's
Uh,
another one called Sermon Shots that's very similar to it. I've played
sure.
around with that one, but I don't use that one. But then there's also, I could go on and on, but there's a Sermon AI. It helps with research. I use it to help my research for the message. Then
Wow.
there's Logos, the Bible commentary software. They
Yes.
actually have an AI piece into that as well. So there's a ton of resources I could just continue to go on and on to share about.
I love that. Yeah, we'll link all of those up in the show notes, for all of our listeners. All right, what's a quote or maybe some advice that has stuck with you over the years?
Well, when I think about even this busy season that we're in life itself, one of the things that my mom used to share with me all the time, and this quote, she didn't coin it, but she used it a lot. It was simply this, and I'll share it with your leaders today. And it's simply Rome wasn't built in a day. It took me a while. My pastor, when I was a younger pastor, used to tell me, slow down. My mother used to tell me, slow down. I still move fast today, but I am at a different pace because I've realized that Rome wasn't built in a day. Now, I have to do something toward building today, but I don't have to do it all every day. And something my pastor used to tell me all the time, the late, great Pastor H.L. Creighton, is that you can't tell it all. Save some of the sermon for next time. So
Mm,
Rome wasn't built in a day, and you can't tell it all this time. So those are just a couple thoughts that stick with me as it relates to thoughts that I've carried through the years.
that's so good. For our audience of church leaders that are out there today, what's one thing that you'd like to communicate to them?
When I think about where we are today and think about the magnitude of weight and political division and just challenge that's before us as leaders, the thing I would love to leave with the leaders who are watching this today is simply this: just know that you can do this because God is
Mm,
with us. We all have our pain points. We all have our problems. We all have our seasons of struggle and seasons of success. Because what many people don't tell you is that there's also a pain of success. But with all that being said, the thing that keeps me going is what I want to share with you is that you were born for this day. You were born for this season. God called you and equipped you, and you can do it. You just have to keep working on practices and doing like you're doing, watching episodes like this and being a part of this leadership network and finding tools and resources through prayer and in your own personal time with God to realize that you are the person for the job and God can use you, not through your perfection, but through his ability to keep pulling you and I up as we go through pain. But we can make it. And you can enjoy and not just have to endure ministry. You can't have a good marriage and do ministry. You can't raise children and have a balance in ministry. It can be done. You just have to work at it. And I want to encourage you to do so.
that is a great word today, Pastor. That is a great word. I know that people are going to want to hear more from you. Where can they follow you? How can they stay connected with your work?
Well, they can follow me online. I'm at arthurjjames.com, my website, or I'm on social channels, social media at Instagram, Pastor Art James. I don't do much on Twitter. That's the one thing I would say related to the question earlier about social media. Choose a channel. You don't have to be on everything, but I am on TikTok as well, Pastor Art James. I'm on LinkedIn, just Arthur James as well. And so,
That's great.
yep,
We'll link all of those up and to your website and to your book as well. Thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today and for all of the great wisdom that you shared. We really do appreciate it.
it's been my pleasure, Kendall. Thanks for having me.
For all of our listeners out there, be sure to check out our show notes. We're going to link all of those valuable resources up for you so that you can check those out. And I would say this to all of you listeners out there today: if this episode has encouraged you the way that it has encouraged me, would you consider sharing it with a friend? Send it to someone who's serving in ministry, someone who's on your team, or maybe that's serving at another church that needs a little encouragement in this busy season. The more that we can get the word out about this podcast, the more it's going to help us to equip leaders just like you. Again, hit that follow button, subscribe to wherever you're enjoying our show, and hey, leave us a review. We'd love to hear how we're doing. And we would say this to every church leader, every person serving in ministry, every listener today, right where you are, right in your city, right in your community. Keep leading well. And we'll see you right back here next time on Church Leadership Lab.
This episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast is brought to you by Ministry Brands, the largest provider of church technology software. Over 90,000 churches rely on Ministry Brands for their single platform solution that brings together all the digital tools a church needs. From online giving to websites to church management software and more, Ministry Brands is leading the way in simple to use, innovative solutions, all with the goal of empowering healthy churches. To learn more, visit ministrybrands.com.